In this video, I'm going to be telling you guys about how I have found my experiences with the PlayStation 5 over the last 3 days. As here in the UK, as I film this, it launched 3 days ago. We're going to talk about numerous things, and there's going to be little chapter markers. If you do want to skip ahead, we're going to talk about design, we're going to talk about the controller, we're going to talk about the UI, we're going to mention some games, and we're going to just talk about things that I'm generally looking forward to. So we're going to end it on a positive, not necessarily that this means this is going to be negative by any stretch of the imagination, because this is a remarkable console. I will say this video is probably not going to be for you if you're looking to talk about kind of frames per second, etc, etc. I do feel there's lots of other platforms out there at the minute that are doing a fantastic job at capturing how well frame rates are quite stable actually for various titles, especially like Digital Foundry, for example. So in this video, I'm speaking as a consumer, I'm speaking as a gamer, and I'm speaking from the heart. So please get comfortable, make sure you guys subscribe, and let's get into this. So they say first impressions last. And if you're like me, when you buy your PS5, whenever that may be, you may have already bought it, when you first take this gigantic machine out of the box, my instant thought was, it's too heavy, it's too bulky, and I really think it's quite an ugly console compared to the other PlayStation consoles that we've seen in the years leading up to this. But now I've actually sat it on my shelf next to my Series S with this controller, which I've actually moved. It's growing on me. It doesn't look as bulky as I was thinking, and I use it vertically because, like I said in my unboxing video, the footprint is a lot smaller. I don't use the stand that it came with, even though some people do utilize the stand for the kind of PS5 in its vertical state. The airflow is apparently slightly better underneath, but the white wings of the PS5 do actually elevate the PlayStation, the kind of black center, they do just actually naturally elevate it. So if you don't want to use the stand, there is a little bit of natural ventilation. So that's kind of how I would prefer to use my PS5, again, purely because of the footprint. Now, I've also been thinking a little bit about the console design, and we'll get to the controller later on, including the design, functionality, etc. It's the only white console that Sony have put out. We have the PS1 in that kind of steely grey. We had the PS2 in its native matte black. We had the PS3 in its initial native piano black. And then we had a mixture of piano and matte black for the original PlayStation 4. So I was like, why have Sony made this a white console? What is going on here? And I think it was done to stand out. If you imagine if you walk into somebody's living room, you're going to immediately spot the PS4. It is a prime feature of somebody's living room, of somebody's game room, of somebody's whatever kind of room your PlayStation is in. It is very apparent where the PlayStation 5 is, because most people tend to accessorize with very dark colours, and I actually prefer it in white. I've seen a lot of videos of people spray painting it. Kudos to you, thumbs up. I think it does look gorgeous in matte black actually, especially with the kind of the blue neon light as you turn on the console. It looks much nicer than white. But I think overall, the design is really growing on me. It's not as obnoxious as I was expecting. So if you're kind of going into this thinking, I don't want a PS5, I don't like the look of it, give it a little bit of time. Make sure you clear some space before you buy your PS5 like I did, so you can almost visualize it before you buy it. You can kind of see it there, and believe you me, it definitely helps to kind of make the design a little bit more palatable. So I think on the whole, the aesthetics aren't as bad as I was initially anticipating. It did get a lot of flack leading up to the PlayStation 5 launch, and there was size comparisons between different consoles, different Sony consoles, different televisions, and I think it had a little bit of a bad start in terms of what you're preempting when you actually get the PlayStation 5 out of its box. And again, you initially get it and you think, ooh, it's pretty grim, but wow, does that console perform. Again, we're going to talk about that later in the video. So overall, I'm very happy now that it's nestled safely in between my Series S and my arcade cab. It's a thumbs up from me. Let's talk about the controller. This is, for me, a very, very, very different controller to anything Sony have put out previously. First of all, let's talk about the kind of colour. Immediately when I got this out of the box, it seemed to me like there was a very mild grey, almost kind of blue tinge to the white. It's definitely, you've got like the controller front, which is a really soft, glossy material at the front, but on the back, it's pure white and it's way more textured. So if you were to look at the controller this way, you might not be able to see it on camera, but the back of the controller is way more stark white compared to the front of the controller. Now that obviously doesn't affect performance, but it definitely affects the aesthetics to the point where I think it looks absolutely beautiful. Another thing that I really like that they've changed, because I think it's great that Sony they've really dared to play with the design of the console and the controller. The buttons are just see-through. Rather than us have the green, red, blue and the kind of, the purple of the original PlayStation icons, they've gone with a much more clean look. And that's the same with the D-pad as well. It is crystal clear, beautifully presented, and I really do like the look of this new controller. Now, in terms of ergonomics, before you even turn the PlayStation on, you will notice that this is a lot bigger than a PlayStation 4. In fact, any previous PlayStation controllers, this has a little bit more meat on its bones. I actually held this for the first time and I said that the ergonomics felt like an Xbox One controller. And I've always preferred the ergonomics of the Xbox controller compared to the PlayStation 4 and the previous consoles down from there, even though I'm much more of a Sony girl. So, looks beautiful and crisp. Ergonomics, really nice, natural feel in the palms, love it, much more comfortable to hold for longer gaming sessions in my opinion. And now for how it kind of feels, because this was a big selling point for the PlayStation 5 leading up to it. Haptics. We've all had controllers where controllers vibrate when you play a video game. You might punch a different character in a game and the controller vibrates to signify the movement in the game. That's fantastic. This is a powerful controller in its haptics as it takes things that one step further. When you play Astro's Playroom, which you must do if you get a PS5, it is basically a tutorial for what this thing can do. And the first thing I noticed is when the title popped up on Astro's Playroom, it pops up on the screen from left and it fades out to the right. The haptics mimics exactly what was going on the controller. So you felt, it vibrate from your left hand through to your right hand and it faded out beautifully. There's also these kind of very prominent things you need to do in Astro's Playroom, and that is to you're almost pulling up what look like little weeds from the ground. They're actually the PlayStation colours and they reveal things like coins and whatever else. But when you're pulling them out of the ground, you can, you're pulling back on the left thumbstick here, you can really feel that tension depending on how difficult it is to pull out that weed. It really does add so much 3D value into the experience, and the sounds are a billion times better in this as well. And I'm going to use this one example. There's this one particular, when you get to the end of a level in Astro's Playroom, you have to pull, there's like there's 4 kind of cables to pull, and you pull it and you pull in these cables a lot longer than you pull in like the other kind of weeds out. And the sound of it's almost like the elastic, you can hear the elastic that's being pulled, and the tension is really unbelievable. And I was like, I don't think I've had a wow gaming moment like that for a very long time, because until you play this, until you feel this, until you sit down and actually get to grips with this controller, my explanation will not do it justice. Digital Foundry's explanation will not do it justice. You need to experience this yourself. It is a huge part of the PlayStation 5. And I think the PlayStation 5, for me, wouldn't have been as attractive if this was just a normal controller. I say normal, i.e. it has the same functions as what the PS4 controller has. Because one of the downsides for the Xbox Series S is nothing felt new. Nothing felt new in the UI, nothing felt new in the controller, which is a damn shame. After you've played a PS5, I think it's kind of clear how the next gen is going to pan out. I will say this, when I played Demon's Souls, as I pumped 3 hours initially, straight after Astro's Playroom, beat the first boss, the haptics didn't really have the same appeal as what they did in Astro's. It seems to me like they've really worked Astro for the DualSense, but not so much other games. Now, yes, I believe that's going to come. And I think there's going to be a lot more improvements as far as the controller goes and the versatility that's going to bring to the gaming experience. But it was a shame that there was kind of nothing out of the box for the main launch titles with this. Now, I've heard rumours that some of the sport titles, the driving games and NBA, they do utilise the haptic feedbacks, but I've played a lot of Demon's Souls predominantly, and it's just the basic rumble features. So whilst this is a beautiful controller, there's a lot more to see. So we'll go ahead and we'll carefully put this back. These stands are from Rose Coloured Gaming, by the way. I did give them a shout out in the last video. The controllers look beautiful. Let's talk about the UI. I think for me, since the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation UI has always been very sleek, very futuristic, very with the times, and the PlayStation 5, when you turn it on, what I noticed first is how different it looks to the 4 and the 3, completely different. Even the sounds are really soft, they're inviting, they're relaxing. It's predominantly kind of like a dark with very, very minor kind of speckles of, I guess, glitter or some kind of light orbs that float around the screen, making things look very, very calming and welcoming, and you're just kind of ready to dive in straight away. Immediately the screen, it just looked flawless in my opinion. And if you're familiar with the PlayStation 4 UI, you've got your library of games ready to cycle through there, obviously once you've installed them. And then you can navigate. There's a bottom bar, whereas I think on the PlayStation 4 the settings and whatnot in the PlayStation Store was all along the top. It's all along the bottom now. Nice little tweaks, making things feel fresh, making things feel very, very different. And for me, this video is about feeling. It's about, you think, okay, I'm familiar with a PS4 UI, so I'll be familiar with a PS5 UI. Not necessarily. Because again, the bars are at the bottom, whereas I was initially looking at the top, and the settings, everything has a slightly different place, enough for it to feel brand new. And again, when I turned my Series S on, nothing felt new. It felt great, don't get me wrong, but it didn't feel new, and I didn't realise that until I switched on the PS5. Now, the UI does seem to perform beautifully. It's very, very fast. I've had no issues with it, I've had no bugs, touch wood. Yeah, I know a lot of people online that have had different bugs with their UI experiences, but I haven't noticed anything yet. Downloads of games also seem incredibly fast. Now, I've downloaded Demon's Souls, the highest edition of the Spider-Man, Sackboy. Astro came built in, you don't need to download that, I think that's worth mentioning. And things I've downloaded much faster, I would say maybe a third faster if I was to kind of guesstimate it, a third faster than what I've noticed on the PlayStation 4, obviously because the PS5 is much better in terms of its SSD. So super darn happy. I will say that in terms of backwards compatibility, I'm going to be buying an additional hard drive, because you can't use an additional or an external hard drive for your PS5 games but you can use it to bring in your PS4 games. So I'm not going to bother downloading any of my PS4 titles over onto that yet. I'm going to wait till I get a hard drive, and I'm going to utilise that hard drive that I've got there. I think it was like 825 gig, then the operating system took about 200 gig off that. So the remaining 650 plus gig that I have are all going to be for my PS5 titles. So after Astro's Playroom, I dived into Demon's Souls, and I played that a lot on the PS3. It was my first introduction to a Souls game. I think it was one of the first anyway, and I absolutely sucked at the game, and it did look really glorious back on the PlayStation 3, but experiencing Demon's Souls on the 5, you know, every edge sharp, every enemy moving really well, didn't notice any rendering. I was looking deliberately for different kind of glitches, especially with like rendering. Didn't really notice any. If I did, it was minimal, whereas sometimes you'll notice a rendering pops on the PS4 and you visually see it. It almost smacks you in the face. But if there was any rendering issues on Demon's Souls, my eyes didn't really pick it up. I'm sure if we went over to Digital Foundry or somebody like a channel that's really techie, you'll see things kind of dissected and dissected and dissected right into the core of that gaming onion, and you'll see every little flaw. But for me, to the naked eye, you don't actually notice anything. I actually was very proud of myself as well. Pat on the back, because I beat the first boss in Demon's Souls, so I've actually surpassed where I got to on the PlayStation 3. I am going to go for completion on it, and I'm not going to stream anything from my PS5 yet. I want to kind of keep it as a fresh, just my experience. And also, you've got to bear in mind, if you're a streamer and you hook up a next-gen console onto a stream setup, you need to make sure your capture card will have a 4K pass-through. If it doesn't, like mine, I have the HD 60, your gaming monitor will only output in 1080p. So for me, if I was to put the PS5 over there, I wouldn't see the full benefits of the PlayStation 5 because I don't have a 4K capture card. I don't want a 4K capture card because for me it's not worth it. You can't stream in 4K due to bandwidth issues, and 1080p is fine for me on a stream anyway. I can hop off that, come straight onto here. I've got a PS4 Pro and I've got my PS5, Xbox One X and Series S hooked up to my 4K TV. So I just want to kind of put that out there. Like, I don't think it's worth streaming from them yet. I will, but just not yet. So in conclusion then, the design of the console itself is really, it grew on me. Hopefully it will grow on you. Don't be perturbed by the fact that it does look like an ugly spaceship. The controller looks and feels and sounds impeccable, especially on Astro's Playroom. There's a little bit of room to kind of go in terms of giving the ultimate functionality of the haptics to the launch games. I do believe that will roll out soon. And I'm just so stoked with the UI. It feels different, and there's enough changes to the kind of the pieces on the main UI for it to feel brand new, and for me to kind of think, oh, where's the settings again? Really, I'm really enjoying it, and I just thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you to Sony for giving us some awesome experiences on the PS5 as we've kind of venturing into this first 7 days here in the UK. If you guys have any questions, be sure to pop them below. Come and check me out on social media. Make sure you guys subscribe. If you want to become a channel member, make sure you hit the join link for like £1.99 a month you can join. I'm also going to be doing some members only live streams for the bacon and egg tier and above. I'm going to start that this week, just like a chill and chat. I'm not going to play any games, just going to chill and chat, talk about upcoming games, interact with you guys. So I'm not focusing on a game, we'll just focus in primarily on chat. So that's going to be a brand new member feature. For now, have a good one. My name is Gemma, take care, see you soon.